Have you seen his comments? No. Or he basically very heavily pushed back on you saying.
So get this. There were absolutely no negotiations happening at all. Or at least that's what one side is saying. And this is where the whole controversy really kicks off.
There were no negotiations. I never said that. I said, were they talking to Jon Jones? They talked to everybody. Everybody was talked to. Not one word of what I said was not true about the whole Jon Jones thing. And how many times have I sat up here and said, he's not fighting at the White House? Have you guys not all seen the video of the dude with the meta glasses on when he didn't know he was being filmed, telling them that his hips are shot and he needs hip replacement? Did you not see the videos of him running on the flag football game? And what did I say that wasn't true? Jon's the greatest of all time. No way in hell Jon Jones is going to be booked for the White House card.
I can tell you that Jon Jones at 4:24 p.m. posted on X that he would like to be released from the UFC. Hey everyone, I wanted to address Dana White's comments from this past weekend because the truth matters to me and the fans. Dana, you were heated about why I'm not on the White House card, but let's clear something up. My team and I were actually negotiating with the UFC for that fight. Real negotiations. I even came down from my original number, and what it was I offered in return, I was lowballed. Yes, I have arthritis in my hip and it's painful, but that doesn't mean I can't fight. So let me get this straight. If I had accepted the lowball offer, suddenly my hip would be fine and I'd be on the White House card. That doesn't make sense. I even received stem cell treatment last week to get ready for the White House card, and training camp was scheduled to start today. I was preparing to be ready. I understand business deals fall through sometimes, but going out publicly and saying things that aren't true isn't right. After everything I've given to the UFC, the years, the title defenses, the fights, hearing that I'm done is disappointing, especially when as of recently as Friday, UFC was calling me trying to get me on that White House card for a much lower number. If the UFC truly feels like I'm done, then I respectfully ask to be released from my contract today. No more spins, no more games. Thank you to the real fans who know what's up. Bones out. So, back to back, you have a tweet from Ronda Rousey, who's one of the faces of the UFC, saying, F you. And then you have Jon Jones, who I appreciate, backed up everything I said around 3 hours ago, saying we were negotiating. I was lowballed, meaning he believes he was lowballed. And if you don't want me to fight for you, if you don't think I can fight.
Opposite, but here's the cold hard truth. If Jon Jones's demands are not being met for the biggest fight in history, they're not going to be met for the biggest fight in history.
Jon Jones and Dana White are suddenly thrown into the middle of this massive public back and forth. And man, it has quickly become one of the biggest talking points in the entire MMA world right now. We're talking about a situation that has fans completely divided, with everyone weighing in with their opinions. After Dana came out and said that Jones was never really seriously considered for the White House card, like never even truly in the conversation, Jones absolutely fired back online, and he didn't hold anything back. He said the negotiations were absolutely real. They were happening. They were legitimate discussions. And according to him, the whole deal fell apart over one thing and one thing only: money. According to Jones, this wasn't some fantasy scenario he made up in his head. These were actual talks that broke down because the financial offer just wasn't there.
So grimy, when the real answer is like, dude, just pay the money. Pay the money. You're spending $60 million to hold him in at the White House. We know why. Just pay it. Make something good happen. or something that the fans want to see. And
Dana came back and explained that he had already said many times before that this fight was simply not going to happen with Jones involved. And he was pretty firm about that stance. One of the big reasons he gave, and this is important, is Jones's physical condition right now, which according to Dana is pretty concerning. Dana talked in detail about how bad Jones's hips have gotten. And we're not talking about minor discomfort here. He said the situation is serious enough that doctors have even suggested hip replacement surgery, which is major for any athlete, let alone a fighter. He also mentioned that he had personally seen footage of Jones trying to move around recently and it wasn't pretty. There was even a flag football game where Jones could barely run, literally struggling to move at the pace you'd need for basic athletic activity, let alone competing at the highest level of MMA.
Dana, you talked about you don't want to say what fight fell out, which is fair enough, but there is obviously...
Well, there's weird circumstances around it that we probably shouldn't talk about.
Okay. There is speculation, of course, that it's Jon Jones.
No, it's not.
Was Jon
Ever, which I told you guys 100,000 times, was Jon Jones even remotely in my mind to fight at the White House. I wouldn't. First of all, I've told you why I wouldn't do it. And number two, some guy with meta glasses on filmed him talking about his hips, that his hips are so bad. And I don't know if you guys saw that flag football game where he can barely run. Jon Jones he retired because of his hips. He's got arthritis in his hips. Apparently he's been doctors say he should have hip replacement.
But here's where it gets even more complicated. Dana also pointed out that while all of this was going on behind the scenes, Jon Jones went ahead and publicly talked about negotiations for the White House fight, which genuinely surprised Dana and caught him off guard. Dana said he had already sent a direct message to Jones's lawyer long before any of this became public, making it crystal clear that the fight was never going to happen. So hearing Jones speak openly about negotiations and acting like this was a real possibility didn't match what was actually happening behind the scenes, at least according to Dana's version of events. Because of that disconnect and because of the ongoing health issues with his hips, Dana basically treated the situation as Jones being done, at least in terms of being part of this specific event. In his mind, the chapter was closed before it ever really opened.
Okay. Add that on top of all the other reasons that I wouldn't. The Jon Jones thing is bullshit. I'm not saying they weren't talking to Jon Jones and that Jon Jones wasn't interested in the fight. And what was even crazier is Jon Jones came out and was like, I'm in negotiations right now for the White House fight, after I had already sent a text to his lawyer saying, never going to happen ever.
Is it fair to say then Jon Jones is retired and this is the end of his time?
Jon Jones quickly responded after Dana White publicly stated that he would not be part of the White House card. And Jones definitely did not stay quiet about the situation. Jones said the issue was not nearly as simple as Dana was making it sound. According to him, his team was actively in talks with the UFC and real negotiations were happening. He even claimed that he had already reduced his original asking price significantly to help make the fight happen, showing he was willing to compromise. But even after lowering his demands, the offer he received from the UFC was far lower than what he expected for a fight of that magnitude. According to Jones, the real issue was not that he didn't want to fight or that he was avoiding competition. The issue was that the offer didn't reflect the value he brings to the company, the pay-per-views, the legacy, and everything he has built over the years. He also addressed the hip issue directly. Jones admitted he does have arthritis in his hip and that it causes pain, but he strongly disagreed with the idea that it means he can't compete at the highest level anymore. In fact, he pointed out that if he had simply accepted the UFC's offer, suddenly the hip issue wouldn't have been a problem at all and he would have been locked in for the fight. Jones also revealed that he had recently undergone stem cell treatment to help with the hip and was planning to start his training camp soon because he genuinely believed the fight could still happen. What really frustrated him was being publicly described as done with the UFC after everything he has accomplished in the organization. He emphasized that he has spent years inside the octagon fighting the best competition, defending championships across different eras, and building his legacy within the promotion. So from his perspective, the narrative that he was finished didn't match reality, especially since the UFC was still contacting his team behind the scenes. That contradiction is what seemed to bother him the most. Another voice in the discussion, Wade Plemon, Also pushed back on the idea that Jones's hip injury was the real reason the fight didn't happen. He pointed out that fighters throughout the history of the UFC have competed with all kinds of injuries, torn ligaments, previous surgeries and ongoing pain management issues. So suddenly treating Jones's hip as a disqualifying factor didn't fully add up to him. In his view, the more likely explanation was that the relationship between Jones and the UFC had already become strained after the public situation involving Tom Aspinall. Clemens suggested the promotion may simply be tired of the constant back-and-forth negotiations and the drama that has surrounded Jones's recent fight talks. From that perspective, the hip injury may have become a convenient explanation to shift attention away from what was really a business and relationship breakdown.